The internet did not see this coming. One moment fans were celebrating chemistry that felt almost unreal, and the next moment timelines exploded with whispers of contracts, courtroom tension, and a storm that refused to stay quiet. What if everything you thought you knew about celebrity relationships was only the surface and the real story was hidden behind signatures, clauses, and silence? Stay with me, because this is not just another rumor-filled headline. This is the deeper legal truth behind the 2025 lawsuit drama involving Wang and Esther Yu, and once you see it, you will never look at fame the same way again. It began like a scene straight out of a drama. Soft lights, flashing cameras, and millions of fans watching every glance between two stars whose on-screen magic had already crossed into something that felt personal. Wang with his effortless charm and rising global fame, and Esther Yu with her vibrant energy and magnetic presence became a duo that audiences could not stop talking about. Every interaction was replayed, every smile analyzed, every moment turned into a story of its own. But behind the scenes, the atmosphere slowly began to shift. Imagine a quiet room far away from flashing cameras where agents, managers, and legal teams sit across polished tables. Papers are spread out with clauses that define image rights, exclusivity agreements, and promotional obligations. This is where the real story begins, not on stage, not in interviews, but in the fine print. As their popularity grew, brands came calling, production companies tightened schedules, and expectations rose to a level where even the smallest misunderstanding could turn into a major issue. Contracts that once looked simple now carried weight. Who could appear, where, who could endorse what, who could say what, and when. Then came the moment that sparked everything. Reports began circulating that a dispute had emerged, not about personal feelings as many assumed, but about professional boundaries and contractual obligations. Scenes were imagined of intense discussions where voices remained calm, but the tension was unmistakable. Legal representatives carefully choosing every word, making sure nothing crossed a line that could cost millions. Fans watched from the outside, trying to connect that were never meant to be visible. Some believed it was a fallout between two stars, others thought it was a publicity stunt, but the truth leaned more towards something far more complex. In the entertainment industry, image is not just identity, it is business. Every appearance, every collaboration, every silence can be part of a larger legal framework. Picture a late-night office where documents are reviewed again and again. Clauses about exclusivity rights are highlighted. Questions arise about whether certain appearances or rumored projects violated agreements tied to previous endorsements. These are not small matters, they shape careers. For Wang, the stakes were tied to maintaining a carefully built global image while expanding into new markets. For Esther, the challenge involved balancing artistic freedom with contractual commitments that demanded consistency and loyalty to partnered brands. At the center of it all was a legal question that few outside the industry truly understand. Who controls a star's image when that image becomes a global product? The lawsuit drama that followed was not about emotions, but about interpretation. Contracts are rarely black and white, they are layers of meaning shaped by wording, context, and timing. What one side sees as flexibility, another may see as a breach. Scenes unfolded in ways the public could only imagine. Lawyers presenting arguments built on timelines and obligations. Managers trying to protect reputations while minimizing damage. Silent strategies playing out behind closed doors while the world speculated endlessly. And yet something even more fascinating was happening at the same time. The public narrative began to split into two worlds. In one world, fans created stories of rivalry, tension, and personal conflict. In the other world, the reality was far more structured, far more calculated, and far more controlled. Statements were carefully released, each word measured to avoid escalating the situation, while still addressing growing curiosity. It was like watching two parallel dramas unfold, one emotional and loud, the other quiet and precise. What makes this story truly mind-blowing is how it reveals the invisible system that governs fame. Behind every viral moment, there can be layers of legal protection, brand alignment, and strategic planning that most people never see. The 2025 lawsuit drama became less about two individuals and more about the machinery of an industry where success brings opportunity, but also restriction. Where freedom can be limited by agreements signed long before the spotlight reached its brightest point. As the situation evolved, the tension slowly shifted into resolution. Not with explosive public confrontations, but with negotiations, adjustments, and a gradual return to stability. Because in this world the goal is rarely to win loudly, but to resolve quietly while protecting long-term value. And when the noise began to fade, something important remained. A reminder that fame is not just about talent or connection, it is also about navigation. About understanding the rules that operate behind the scenes and the power of decisions made long before the audience ever sees the result. So the next time you watch a moment between Dylan Wang and Esther, you remember this story. Not as a scandal, but as a glimpse into a world where every move can carry legal weight and every silence can speak volumes. And if this opened your eyes even a little, do not stop here. Dive deeper, question more, and stay curious, because the stories behind the spotlight are often more powerful than the ones we see. Now tell me, what do you think was really happening behind those closed doors, and would you have handled it differently? And just when it seemed like the storm had settled into silence, something even more intriguing began to unfold. A pause. Not the kind that signals an ending, but the kind that hides movement beneath the surface. Fans noticed it first. The subtle shifts in appearances, the carefully spaced projects, the absence of moments that once felt effortless. It was as if an invisible line had been drawn, not to separate completely, but to redefine how things would exist moving forward. In a dimly lit strategy room somewhere far from the public eye, conversations continued. Not heated, not chaotic, but deliberate and focused. Legal teams revisited clauses with precision. Managers mapped out future appearances like chess moves, each step calculated to avoid repeating the same tension. For Dylan Wang, this phase became one of quiet repositioning. Every project he touched now carried an added layer of intention. The scripts, the endorsements, the public image, all aligned toward a direction that felt controlled, yet powerful. It was no longer just about rising, it was about sustaining without disruption. For Esther Yu, the transformation carried its own kind of energy. Her choices reflected a balance between expression and structure. She stepped into roles and appearances that allowed her individuality to shine while still respecting the boundaries that had been so sharply defined during the legal storm. And then came the most fascinating part. The industry itself began to respond. Producers, brands, and insiders watched closely, not just because of the names involved, but because of what the situation represented. It became a case study, a silent lesson in how quickly things can shift when agreements collide with opportunity. Picture a new project meeting where executives pause for just a second longer before finalizing contracts, where legal teams ask one more question than they used to, where every signature now carries the memory of what unfolded in 2025. The ripple effect was real. But beyond the contracts and negotiations, something deeper was happening within the audience. Perception was evolving. Fans who once viewed celebrity connections as spontaneous began to see the structure behind them. The realization that even the most natural-looking interactions can exist within carefully defined boundaries changed the way many people engaged with content. Yet the fascination did not fade. If anything, it grew stronger. Because there is something undeniably captivating about the space between what is seen and what is hidden. Moments that once felt simple now carried a sense of mystery. A glance, a shared stage, an interview response, each one analyzed not just for emotion but for intention. And still the question lingered. What truly happened behind those closed doors? Was it a clash of expectations? A misalignment of timing? Or simply the inevitable result of two rising forces navigating an industry that demands both individuality and control? The truth may never be fully revealed, and perhaps that is what makes this story so powerful. Not the answers, but the layers. Not the conclusion, but the complexity. Because in that complexity lies a reflection of something much bigger than one lawsuit or two names. It reveals a world where success is built not only on talent but on awareness. Where every opportunity carries responsibility and every decision echoes far beyond the moment it is made. As time moved forward, the narrative transformed once again. No longer defined by conflict, but by resilience. No longer centered on speculation, but on evolution. Dylan, Wang, and Esther Yu continued their journeys not as figures caught in a single chapter, but as individuals shaping what comes next with a deeper understanding of the landscape they stand in. And maybe that is the real story. Not the drama, not the headlines, not the whispers, but the transformation that follows. So, as you watch their next appearances, their next roles, their next moments in the spotlight, remember this. You are not just watching entertainment. You are witnessing strategy growth and the silent power of lessons learned in rooms the world will never see. And now the story shifts to you. Because once you understand how this world works, you begin to see everything differently. So keep watching, keep questioning, and stay one step ahead of the narrative. Because the real stories are never the loudest ones. They are the ones waiting quietly beneath the surface, ready to be discovered by those who look a little deeper.